Now, I thought I understood how hydration works when out backpacking and hiking, especially around the use of electrolytes in aiding in proper hydration. But I really didn't understand it the way I thought I should. Now, this discussion with Jeff and Jenny, the founders of Tailwind Nutrition, really opened my eyes to what I was missing and just simply misunderstood about hydration when it comes to being active in the backcountry. So I hope you enjoy this video podcast with Jeff and Jenny from Tailwind Nutrition and learn as much as I did about electrolytes and hydration for hiking and backpacking and just being active outside. Well, Jeff and Jenny, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon here to talk about Tailwind Nutrition. And I'm really excited about this because this is a topic that I think maybe doesn't get visited enough in the backpacking and hiking space around the science of hydration. And that's what I want to focus on today. And Tailwind seems to be the go-to for understanding how to properly hydrate in the backcountry. So thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Devin, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Let me ask this: where are you guys located? I should ask that.
We are in Durango, Colorado. So a great place to go backpacking, actually.
Yeah.
Sonoma Manouche Wilderness, the San Juan Mountains. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing. A couple of years ago, I was in Colorado, went on a family trip to Glenwood Springs, and it to this day has been one of our favorite trips. But I've actually never been to the San Juan Mountains, and we made a detour on our drive out there because I live in Salt Lake City, and we went to Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park to just check off the national park list, and I remember looking out to the east and like seeing the San Juans out there, and I'm like, oh man,
yeah,
I need to go out there.
Yeah,
they are a spectacular range. They're one of the youngest ranges in the Rockies, and so they're kind of more, right? They're more craggy and vertical, and really just a beautiful area. And then we're also close by to southern Utah and Bears Ears and Canyonlands and all those areas too. So kind of best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the Bears Ears area. It's so much history, so much going on there. Well, the question I was going to lead off with is anything interesting happening with summer around the corner here in a couple weeks? What have you got planned for summer adventures that get you out of the office and out in the backcountry?
Well, we were actually we got a little jump start on summer or spring thanks to our partner in New Zealand, and we were actually just in New Zealand for the past 2 weeks, where we did a trail race called the Fault Line Ultra, and we followed it with a bikepacking trip along the old Ghost Trail or road on the South Island, which was unbelievable. Oh my goodness, the scenery, the trail itself, the hut system that they've set up, it was spectacular.
Wow.
So it's a trip that I will always remember. And the Kiwis are just phenomenal. Just very welcoming, and including the little wekas who seem to be following us along the trail. All of it was just very memorable.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you going to add something, Jeff?
Well, just that that trip, the Old Ghost Road, they have backcountry huts along the way. So you can backpack and you can stay in a hut, or you can camp, either one. But it's 85K, and the only way into those huts is either biking or on foot or helicopter. It's just like a real wilderness area, and the views are just spectacular. So I'd highly recommend it. You do have to watch out for those wekas. They will open up your pack and steal your food.
Oh my gosh.
Shamelessly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, what a wild place. Now that event it's a running endurance race, right?
So we did it was called the Fault Line, and we did a mountain bike. We split a mountain bike, and they also have a run race. So
Gotcha.
we split yeah, we split a 100-mile mountain bike, and then they have the 100-mile run, and they have all sorts of other distances, also shorter distances too.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah, that was
Nice.
super cool.
I always find it really interesting to dive into origin stories of brands, particularly in the outdoor industry, because I feel like there's always some kind of unique adventure or something that is tied to the reason a brand comes about. And it might sound like,
So true.
well, I'm teeing Jeff and Jenny up for this question, which, I mean, you didn't know that I was going to ask this specifically, but it does seem that anytime I'm looking at an outdoor brand, there's some kind of like epic experience that happened, that there was a problem, there was an accident, or it was like this eye-opening experience of there's a product opportunity here and I'm going to pursue that. And I'm guessing that's probably the case here, having read some of like your story on your website. But I'm
Right.
curious to hear from you the origin of Tailwind Nutrition, because I, I would dare to say that you didn't wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to start a hydration company and make electrolytes.
Definitely not. But I did wake up one day and have a bowl of muesli, and
Okay. What is that?
and it's like a granola,
Okay. Okay.
like a deconstructed granola. So,
I see.
kind of like the oats and the dried fruit and things like that. Actually, good backpacker food. But
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but on this particular day, I was doing the Leadville 100 mountain bike race, which a friend had
Mm.
talked me into. Um, and I'd never done any racing before, but my friend was like, "Oh, you need to pick something and train for it." And so um, I don't I don't know what that says about me that I chose a 100-mile mountain bike race in Leadville. But yeah, got up and did that, and my stomach felt horrible the whole day,
Mm.
even though I'd trained, I think, pretty well for it. And then Jenny was waiting at the finish line and with a video camera and and was ready to give me a big hug. I did finish, but it was really a slog. And then she was like coming in for the hug. I'm like, nope, and went straight for the trash can and puked up that muesli from 13 hours earlier. It
Oh.
was still very identifiable. So
And,
yeah, that
and,
was
and I mean, you can do a search for it, and it's up on YouTube, so you can see Jeff after he's blowing. He's like rinsing chunks off of his Leadville 100 medal at the end.
Oh, fantastic.
yeah. Well, and I still wasn't, at that point starting a business, but that was the thing that kind of kicked off a search for nutrition that would work
Okay.
for kind of getting out there all day and pushing kind of hard. So, um, that's what really set me down that path of exploration, trying to figure out how I could solve my own problem, and then it turned out that like I wasn't able to just do it with products that were already on the market, and then that led to some me just trying to understand more about how our bodies hydrated and how we fueled, and understanding that science. I kind of realized like, okay, I can see why this wasn't working and that wasn't working, and I didn't see anything that I thought was really matching how our bodies absorbed fuel and hydrated, and so that led to making my own. And even then, it wasn't a business, that's how it eventually became our endurance fuel for Tailwind.
So maybe break down for me some of the science of, because there are so many different like electrolyte and hydration things. You have like Noon, you have Element, you have Liquid IV. That's the one I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do you be different from everything else that's available, but have a product that does what it needs to do without just being the same thing as everybody else? Does that make sense?
hmm
Mhm.
hmm Being in the athletic world and the sports world, we kind of have always approached it from really breaking down what exactly is going on with the body and what does it need
Okay.
to support good performance. And so that's sort of the starting point. And with hydration in particular, what you're talking about is maintaining the balance between water and electrolytes that are in the bloodstream. Interestingly, like as people start to sweat and when they're exercising, they're losing water. You're losing water at a faster rate than you're losing electrolytes like sodium and potassium and things like that. And the reason is because blood is super salty. It's about 4 times saltier than your sweat. So you
Okay.
actually have quite a bit of electrolyte content in your blood, right? But as you are sweating, your body is utilizing some of those as to activate pumps that move water out onto your skin, and that's what helps cool you down, right?
Hmm.
So it's
Right.
thermal regulating your thermal regulation, and so you're getting at one of the reasons why electrolytes are important because they actually enable those pumps to move water out onto your skin and cool you down. But what you're losing is you're losing a lot of water and
Hmm.
you also are losing some of your electrolytes, but you're losing water at a faster rate. So for most people as they're exercising, they reach a state of a somewhat dehydrated state, and that's okay up to a point. The effect of that is you've reduced the water in your blood, so you've actually effectively concentrated the electrolytes in your bloodstream. It seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. Because I guess I've always been of the understanding that, well, you're sweating out the electrolytes and you have to replenish that. But I'm kind of hearing a little bit of the opposite of what you're saying is counterintuitive, where you're releasing the water content, but you still have that
You
within your
still have quite a
bloodstream.
quite a bit of the
So there's
electrolytes in your
there's an
bloodstream.
imbalance.
Yeah, so you can develop an imbalance that way
Okay.
where you've actually reduced your water, and then that's resulted in concentrating your electrolytes.
It's almost like
So
it's a ratio, right? So if you
yeah,
think of your mathematical equation and your fractions on both sides, as you are reducing the level of water in your bloodstream, by default, you're increasing the level of sodium.
I see. I
not the
see.
absolute amount of sodium, but
The
the
ratio.
ratio of the two. It's
Gotcha.
Are you follow
Gotcha.
it? Follow me what I'm saying there? So you're,
Yeah.
you're right. You're
Yeah.
right that you are losing electrolytes and you're losing water. It's just that you're losing more water than you are electrolytes. So the relative concentration is increased. And so that's actually kind of thickening your blood and
Hmm.
makes it harder for your heart to move, move your blood around the body to deliver energy to your cells, to remove waste from your cells. So especially for the first hour, 2 hour kind of efforts, what you're what's really important is to that you replace the fluid to hydrate because um, you're not really going to deplete enough of the electrolytes to really require replenishing at that point, but you do really need to replace that fluid because that's the part that's getting out of balance. And this is a good thing for people to think that, just to keep in mind in hydration in general, is that it really is about that balance
Mm-hmm.
between the fluid and the electrolytes. It's not just about the electrolytes. So
Gotcha.
I think that's
Gotcha.
one of the things that's not commonly understood. Like it's easy to focus on just taking the electrolytes and kind of forget about the water part. But
Right.
the water part's really important to maintain that balance.
I guess like a follow up question I have is two part. One is, why isn't water just good enough?
Hmm.
If I'm coming from the mindset of, I'm not an endurance athlete, I'm not running an ultra marathon, I'm not exerting myself beyond what is, like, exerting my body to the point that I'm like really intense in
hmm
my cardio, high heart rate for an extended amount of time, and needing to like also consume a lot of calories, Maybe
Yeah.
I'm hiking 2 miles an hour. I've got a 40-pound pack on and I'm walking 3 miles. I'm going to get sweaty because it's hot. And maybe I'm at a little bit of altitude, 8,000, 9,000 feet. How is that like still an important part of, and that this is the part two question is, why does that person still need the replenishment on top of the water? Does that make
hmm
sense?
hmm
So why isn't water good enough, but why do I also need this additional thing if I'm not really exerting my body beyond just 110 beats per minute and I've got a
Sure.
sweaty back from my backpack?
I'll approach it a couple ways. So one is to think of the water question. So water, if you were going for say an hour, you could just drink water. You're probably going to be fine. Um,
Okay.
and that so maybe it's not a backpack, but maybe that's the you go out for a hike with your dog or something like that for an hour. Yeah, water's going to be fine. However, drinking water alone is relies on osmosis to move the water into your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another way that that can happen, and that's to use the active transport um, mechanisms that are available for glucose and fructose, which are two simple sugars. And those transports, have when you have those sugars available together with sodium, they will activate and they will actively pump the sugar and the sodium molecules into your bloodstream. And those
Okay.
sodium molecules will then suck water through the pores in the small intestine. The result is you get faster absorption of all three of those things, your energy, your electrolytes, and your water. You're getting them all together. So you can actually hydrate faster than just drinking plain water by utilizing those transports.
I
So
see.
that
Okay.
is for a shorter kind of duration. It's the electrolytes are assisting really more with the hydration in that case than they are really with replenishment, which is something you have to be more concerned about for a longer period of time. So kind
Mm.
of
Okay.
multiple
Okay.
hours. But even in a shorter duration, to be able to hydrate quickly or to rehydrate quickly, having those electrolytes together with the sugar helps because it allows you to hydrate faster.
I see.
Does that make sense?
It
You actually
does.
need, and you actually need all three. So you can't just take sodium by itself either. You need to have the glucose and the fructose with that sodium to activate those pumps.
Interesting. Okay. Because this leads into another question that I had kind of prepped you with is some brands will say that no sugar is what you should have. Then that can be like part of their marketing is there's no sugar in this. It's just sodium, magnesium, potassium, but it sounds like sugar is actually an important part of the hydration process and maybe not so much the total replenishment, but it is like a catalyst. Is that how I'm
Hmm.
understanding,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Where's the discrepancy of if brand A is saying our product has all of these things in it and this is only what you need for hydration, brand B is saying, well, no, you need these things. How am I as a consumer supposed to weed through knowing what is actually, if I'm not like a scientist and I don't have the education of what we're talking about? And that's why I was so interested in like sitting down and talking about this with you, is to try to like understand the middle ground of, okay, what really is for the average person? How do you find that middle ground of between those two scenarios that I presented?
Yeah. Uh, that's a good question. And kind of to get to, all right, the science part of it is that if you are not consuming the sugars to activate the transport mechanisms, but you just have electrolytes in water,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to rely on the osmotic process for absorbing, which is just slower.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
still hydrate that way. It's just that that product isn't going to help you hydrate any faster than drinking plain water. So it's just the same mechanism basically. Now that's not to say that those electrolytes, if you were trying to replenish your electrolytes, that they wouldn't have a value in that respect. But it's just not going to hydrate you any faster than drinking plain water. So just kind of know that going in, I think, as a layperson,
Okay.
that as if you're going for zero sugar, you're really just going for the flavor and, maybe some replenishment of your sodium. Like we kind of talked about earlier, for shorter duration, you have so much sodium already in your body. It's not really necessary to have a ton of it to facilitate hydration. And in fact, most of the studies kind of recommend that you go at say 20 to 30% of replacement value. So like 20 to 30% of what you're sweating out. You certainly don't need to be going like at a you don't need to be replacing more than what you're sweating out, which some of the products are aimed at. Which is that one's just a little tough to understand, I think,
Hmm.
scientifically as to why you would want that.
Yeah, or for somebody to be like, well, yeah, I just sweat 30% of my intake. Now I need to replenish. Like that can be hard to
Yeah.
quantify what that actually is.
It is hard to quantify, and it's also when you keep in mind that most people have a hard time drinking as much as what they're losing. So if you're
Right.
so if you're not replenishing all the fluid, then you also don't need to be replenishing. You don't need to overdo and replenish more of the electrolytes than what you're replenishing of your fluid. All right, so just that's kind of thing on the hydration is the sugars together with the sodium and the potassium and the water help you to hydrate faster. So just know that that's a kind of a real simple fact. And then in terms of what you need for a longer duration, that's where, I think we've all experienced this as if you're sweating like that, if you're backpacking and you're hiking all afternoon and you're really sweaty, by the end of the time you get to dinner, you're really craving like the cup of noodle soup, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the really salty stuff. And that is your body saying, "Hey, replenish some of my electrolytes, please." Um, so there is some value to having that. But again, it's not even really you don't necessarily have to get to full replenishment of what you lost. It's really about trying to maintain the water and sodium balance. So consuming both of those together.
Yeah, that makes like I'm just sitting here like wow, I did not understand this as much as I thought I did from just a basic level. The next question I would ask though is I'm racking my brain back to my wilderness first responder training, and this is just kind of a random thought that I had in that training, because you're maybe out working as a guide, you're taking people that have maybe not spent that much time in the sun, they've not carried a backpack with that much weight before, and they, like you said, they're not drinking as much water as they should be. And so I think from that dehydration standpoint, it's pretty easy to be like, yeah, your body needs electrolytes, you need to like bring this back into your system. But I wonder from like an opposing side of things, there's dehydration and then there's hyponatremia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Hmm.
you've now created an even different imbalance in your blood content of
Yeah.
now you've overhydrated. And that would be with just water, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Right.
Is there a way to overconsume electrolytes? Like you consume too much sodium to compensate.
I mean, yes. And again, it kind of gets that idea of balance. You really don't want to go too far in either direction. The hyponatremia is can be very dangerous
Hmm.
because your electrolytes, amongst other things that they do, is they facilitate the electrical conductivity um, so that of nerves and muscles. So like your muscles can fire when they're supposed to, including your heart, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's really important that you maintain that balance of the electrolytes in your bloodstream along with your water. And with hyponatremia, what can happen is, so if over multiple hours, if you are drinking a lot of water and but not replacing any of your electrolytes, then you can strip out your electrolyte content and wind up with just not enough to keep your normal function going. That one's pretty easy to adjust, and that is, it doesn't take a lot of electrolytes to consume, as part of your hydration strategy or part of your food,
Find that
right?
homeostasis.
Especially a lot of foods that you would take on trail are going to have salt in them, right?
Hmm.
As long as you're not just drinking water only and staying completely away from sodium, you can probably avoid that situation. The other situation is it's really dehydration. And like I said earlier, a lot of us are somewhat dehydrated while we're exercising, and that's okay. But it's when it goes to a more extreme level where you've depleted enough of the water content, and now your blood's really thick. So it actually has a relatively high level of electrolytes. And
Right.
so
Yeah. Okay.
adding a product that, like if you were to just take electrolyte pills, then that would just make it worse, right? You
I
would
see.
just be
Okay.
adding more electrolytes, but not addressing the missing water volume. And so that's where the electrolytes are useful in helping you to absorb the water, but but you don't need a lot of electrolytes to achieve that.
The other thing that I would add is that let's say you are taking an excess sodium, your body is actually an incredible piece of machinery. It's figured out a lot of things. And its way to get rid of excess sodium is by urine, by your urine. So if you're not
Yeah.
Okay.
staying hydrated, then you've lost that mechanism to get rid of that excess sodium. So, like Jeff said, you really want to make sure that you're cognizant of those three different variables of the electrolytes, of the hydration, and of the energy or the carbohydrates, because they all work together to keep your body in balance. And if you overdo it on one of those variables, you're going to find yourself in a lot of hurt. So if you're overdoing it on calorie consumption on a
Hmm.
per hour basis, you're probably going to end up in stomach issues because you're taking in way too many calories than what you can actually absorb. If you're
Right.
taking in way too much water and not enough sodium, then you can end up with a hyponatremia. If you're taking in way too much sodium and not enough water, then you're removing the ability for your body to get rid of that sodium. So they all work together.
I like that. Thanks for piecing all of that together. I kind of like to swing the pendulum in both directions to try to find what that balance is,
Mhm.
because I do think that some people sometimes, especially when I'm out, I work as a guide. I take university students out on trips, and I always tell them, like, you've never carried a pack before, and you're going to be in the sun longer than you think you're going to be. It's going to be harder on your body than you are used to, and these things need to be in place. You need to be consuming calories and
Right.
having good foods that are high in calorie per ounce, so you're not consuming a massive amount of food, but you're giving
Mhm.
your body the fuel that it needs for the time that you're walking. But then you're also drinking enough water, and also like the
Mhm.
balance of the electrolyte aspect. And it's
Yeah.
funny
Mhm.
to see where people land in, I didn't eat anything and I feel like junk because of it, or I drank
Mhm.
so much water that I feel like junk. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
how
Stomach's
do
all
you
sloshing.
mesh it all
Yeah.
together, you know?
It's just like your parents told you when you were younger, everything in moderation.
Yeah, yeah.
But it might be helpful to put some kind of guardrails around that and just give like an idea of what we're talking about volume wise. Like on
Hmm.
the calorie front, most people when they're exercising can absorb between 200 and 300 calories an hour.
Okay.
And so that's a good starting place to think of, somewhere in that range. And you can eat more than that, right? That's pretty easy to throw down a Big Mac and like um, have more than that. But that's but
Right.
that's that's sort of a practical level that most people can absorb comfortably while they're exercising, and then keeping those into pretty simple forms. Obviously, like with Tailwind, we're actually giving you just the sugars that you need that your body absorbs. So there's no digestion involved. And that's pretty easy. But other easy foods would be breads or starches or bananas. Bananas are high in glucose.
Hmm.
The usual stuff we're attracted to, like nuts and fruit and things like that.
Yeah.
It can take a little bit longer, but they still will absorb fairly quickly. So kind of trying to keep that steady intake of calories. And then on the electrolyte front, the average person's sweat has 900 milligrams per liter of water. So that kind of gives you an idea of
Okay.
the quantity. So like if you were drinking like 500 mLs, then you wouldn't want 1,000 milligrams of salt, right? Because that you would be taking way too much sodium for the amount of fluid that you're actually replacing. So
I
you want to
see.
kind of
Okay.
keep it targeted and balanced to your fluid intake. Oh, and then just the fluid itself. What we find for most athletes is somewhere between 20 ounces on the low end and 24 ounces of water per hour is a good target. But if it's hot, you'd want to keep your calorie rate the same, but up your water. So you may want to drink as much as a liter, a full Nalgene in an hour if it's really hot.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question is there a level, and everybody's like metabolism and body makeup is going to be different, but is there an amount of water intake that at some point your kidneys just kick in? It's like too much and it just is flushing all of that out, where like if I drink, like you said, 20 ounces, is that kind of like the sweet spot of the amount of water that I should be drinking that's going to give me the hydration that I need, as opposed to like I am so thirsty I'm going to guzzle a full Nalgene of water, and then I find myself having to find a tree 10 minutes later because my body can't take on that much fluid that fast. Does that make sense?
So a really good way, again, your body is great at telling you things. So when you pee, you can look at the color. And if it's
Yeah.
clear, that probably means you're overhydrated. So you want to strive
Or
for
well
that.
hydrated.
Yeah, you really want to strive for that that little yellowish color. So that's kind of the happy medium, I would say. There's also a beer test that you can do where you look at the shade of your pee,
Yeah,
and it
right.
correlates with different types of beer. So you want to shoot for like an IPA.
No, or a nice lager, but
It's like,
maybe not a stout.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, let's avoid the rhabdo. Let's
yeah,
not
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
let's not have the protein dance.
yeah.
yeah.
Um, well, yeah, I think you're hitting on one thing there, which is that it is easier on your body altogether to be taking things in small doses. So sipping along the way, as opposed to
Mhm.
letting yourself like go for an entire hour and then just try and guzzle everything all at once. Um, it is easier on your system that way, because you kind of are kind of constantly feeding, and you're constantly expending energy too. So
Mhm.
um, it doesn't challenge your digestive system as much to give it in doses. So that's one strategy. And then I think it depends a lot on the person and the temperature and how much you're sweating. Um, that 20 ounces up to a liter, but yeah, it'd be pretty hard to imagine circumstances where more than a liter an hour would really make sense for anybody. Um,
Okay.
and hopefully, if you are staying on top of your hydration, somewhere around that 20 to 24 ounces an hour is a good rate.
I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of people, honestly, to just kind of like here's a baseline kind of approach, because I don't remember anybody ever telling me, aside from eat salty foods and drink plenty of water. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, what does that actually equal? You
What does
know?
that actually mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're thirsty, you should go ahead and drink for sure.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I mean, because then you're adding in all the variables of altitude and how
Yeah.
much vertical gain per mile that you're doing and how that affects your
Right.
calorie consumption, all sorts of things. So I know it's not possible to just say 20 ounces per hour and take this much in electrolyte consumption and you're good to go. Like
Yeah. No,
it's
it
it,
definitely varies on the
yeah,
conditions, but those are
yeah,
some general guidelines.
cool. I like it. That's awesome. Okay, the next question I have, we spent a lot of time talking about the science of electrolytes and breaking down that idea, but let's talk about Tailwind and your product and how it's different, kind of what the makeup is of your product, and how to use it. If you were to
Sure.
give like, here's the sales pitch on Tailwind, lay it on me.
Yeah, I think, when you're talking about Tailwind, we have three different products. So we have our
Okay.
endurance fuel, our recovery mix, and a product we just released this year called Rapid Hydration. And so when I think of folks who are going out backpacking, they're probably expending quite a few calories on a per hour basis. And so you want to sustain your energy and replace your electrolytes and make sure you're staying well hydrated. So the thing that really sets Tailwind apart is that we really try to combine those three different components into one drink so that it's just super easy. So you figure out, okay, if you're targeting 200 calories an hour and 20 to 24 ounces, and you're getting your electrolytes, and it ends up being about 630 milligrams of sodium, along with the magnesium, the calcium, and the potassium. You just drink a bottle an hour and you're good. You don't really need to think about anything else. So our approach was make it super simple because you want to enjoy the view, right? Or you want to make sure you don't miss that milepost where you're supposed to turn right. So that you can really be in the moment and enjoy that and not have to think about nutrition at all and have it be taken care of. And it's also flexible enough. So if you wanted to add your favorite trail mix, or you're stopping off for lunch and you take out that can of Spam, sorry, inside joke with Jeff on that, and enjoy that, you can. So you just, for the next hour or so, you just are taking in your water because you've gotten those calories and your electrolytes through another means. So it really is designed to be super easy, super simple, and provide all that you need so that you can sustain your energy levels, make sure you're getting enough electrolytes and your hydration. And then the other piece, which to me is, I found particularly as I've gotten older, which is so critical, is that I don't recover the way that I used to in my 20s. And so what I love is our recovery mix. So when we get to our campsite and it's been a long day of backpacking, I pull out the recovery mix. And while we're setting up camp, I can take my recovery mix, and I swear it is like my golden elixir. So it helps me recover really fast because it's replenishing my glycogen stores. It's giving me protein to rebuild my damaged muscle tissue, and it's also giving me electrolytes. So it's really like this complete recovery as well. And so the next day I feel great. So I can go out and do it again, and I'm not hurting. I'm not sore. Well, maybe I'm sore from sleeping on my hip when I'm sleeping because my firmer rest isn't quite as big as I would like. But really, it really helps a lot. So for a backpacking scenario, the endurance fuel and recovery mix are fantastic. And then if you're just going out on a hike and it's a hot day and you're sweating a lot, or you want something refreshing to drink, that's where our rapid hydration comes into play. It's really for shorter duration and less intense efforts, so that you're staying well hydrated and you're replenishing your electrolytes. And it does have real sugar in it. There's no stevia. There's no of those intense sweeteners like the monk fruit juice or the sucralose or whatever. It is pure and natural. And like Jeff has said, that sugar is important so that you can get even more hydrated than just by drinking water alone. And so that's what it's used for in that scenario. So that's how I would describe our products. And
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, like they are all drinks. They're powders that you mix with water, so they're very compact. It's easy to carry, and like we have little single serve packets of the recovery mix that you just you stuff that in your pack, and then when you when you pull the pack off, you can pull that out, throw it into your bottle, and recover, like start recovering right then. And it's amazing how much a difference that will make too, to just to give you that, start rebuilding your energy stores. It makes you so you're like not ready to just pass out or fall asleep.
Yeah. I think the only product that I've tried so far is the rapid hydration, and the recovery sounds like a welcome thing. I turned 37 last week. So I'm not old, but I am at that point where like I'm starting to feel a little bit different after a 10-mile day of bushwhacking in southern Utah and
Yeah,
yeah,
for
and
sure.
such. So,
sure.
but yeah, I've enjoyed the rapid hydration, and the flavor profiles are nice too. The
Hmm.
berry, I think, is my
Mm-hmm.
favorite.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just nice,
Hmm.
like balanced, even, good flavor that isn't too strong on one side or the other, and
Yeah.
it's not like an overly sweet or super strong
Hmm.
Yeah, and
drink as
that's
well.
something that we aim for really with the endurance fuel and the rapid hydration is not to be over the top. It's very they're very tolerable for a long day. You know, you talked about like how's it different than some of the products that we talked about at the beginning, and that's one of the differences is the flavors are lighter,
Hmm.
kind of lighter, cleaner. They're tasty, but they're not over the top, and they're not things that you just get really sick of. And
Yeah.
that's something we aim for with all the products.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you talked about rapid hydration because it is true. That's how a lot of people are using rapid hydration is they're combining it with calories that you may be getting from your trail mix or the banana or what
Hmm.
have you. So rapid hydration is a really nice complement to actually eating your calories versus just taking liquid calories.
Hmm.
Gotcha.
If you wanted to go just liquid calories, you could do that with the endurance fuel
There's fuel.
line, and that's where you will see athletes that are like running a ultra race or
We're trying to get an
biking
FKT or
something like the
something.
Leadville 100. That's what you
Hmm.
would use. That's what you would use because it could give you that energy level,
Hmm.
to sustain it. But rapid hydration is a great way to go to stay hydrated, and then you can fill in the calories with other things.
Gotcha. And that would be your recommendation, because I was going to break down each of the three products. The endurance fuel is kind of its own thing, that when you're really exerting a lot of energy, as
You
like
know,
an endurance athlete kind of approach, and you're not consuming a bunch of calories on top of it, so you're not
Hmm.
yeah.
overdoing it with your gut, right?
Yep.
I would also add though, I think nutrition is so personal, right?
Yes, it is.
So it's, um, there are some people who just like sipping away all day and they'll just take endurance fuel. And then there
Okay.
are others,
Okay.
particularly like when you're backpacking and hiking, I think people tend to eat more versus just by getting calories more through food than just through liquid.
Hmm.
And so that's where I think rapid hydration could be more applicable. But it really comes down to the person and what they want to do. I will say that the endurance fuel was, when it was created, was really focused on addressing GI issues because
I
a lot
see.
of folks
Okay.
who go out and they're doing longer distances or high intensity, um, they tend to run into GI problems. And
Hmm.
so the endurance fuel is really focused on that and sustaining you over long periods of time. Folks in your audience, they generally have GI issues, and I would absolutely recommend the endurance fuel.
Yeah.
Cool.
Another way to think about this is weight too. Like,
Hmm.
if you're trying to do something like the Colorado Trail and you want to try and get as many calories in a small and compact form as possible, like, okay, the endurance fuel is great for that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
If you're
Okay.
if you're wanting to have a really nice day hiking and then enjoy the ritual of a meal, then maybe you go and you don't use the endurance fuel. You actually bring your food and use rapid hydration to help you hydrate.
Well, sounds like I need to buy some of the endurance fuel for one of the summer trips that I have. That's a pretty intense.
Hmm.
I'm connecting three different high Uinta basins here in the Uinta Mountains.
Oh wow.
That's including going over some off trail passes
Hmm.
Oh,
some of
cool.
the peaks,
Hmm.
and one of my concerns is I want to be as lightweight as possible. And so I'm going to carry like a 30-liter fast pack for the trip,
Hmm.
which then limits the amount of food that I can carry for like a 3-4 day trip. And so that like calorie per ounce balance is
Yeah.
really,
And
really key
Yeah.
how high are you going?
as high as just over 11,000 feet
Okay.
in some of the
Okay.
areas. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is interesting. So your GI system is compromised even more at higher altitude,
Hmm.
in which case your carbohydrates are great.
Yeah.
So
That's where the endurance fuel can really help you out.
yeah,
Right.
It's I
skewing more towards carbohydrates versus say fats. Your body has a much easier time digesting carbohydrates than it does fats. So
I see. I
And
see.
I found this out the hard way, but it turns out that like endurance fuel's energy density is similar to like an ammonium nitrate bomb.
Okay.
um, but it turns out that it will set off those scanners at TSA.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
so
So be careful.
that just gives you an idea. Like it's high energy
high
density, so it'd be
energy.
kind of perfect for compact way to bring a lot of calories.
Gotcha. What kind of per serving calorie density are you looking at for the endurance fuel versus the rapid hydration versus the recovery?
The endurance fuel is a 100 calories per 27 grams. So if you were
Okay.
taking 200 calories an hour, that'd be 54 grams. The rapid hydration is one packet of the rapid hydration is 45 calories, and that's that'll mix with 20 20 to 24 ounces of water. So definitely lower calorie rate, similar amount of water. And then a packet of the recovery mix is about 240 calories. And so that's coming from the carbohydrates that you're using to replenish the glycogen stores. And then the protein, is more utilized for rebuilding the muscle once those glycogen stores are rebuilt. And then the electrolytes are in there as well, but they don't add to the calorie count.
So adding that recovery on top of a nice, warm, hot, freeze dried meal at the end of the day just really
I
compounds
know. You
Mm-hmm.
can you
the.
can you know how you normally have your hot cocoa or
Uh
hot tea
huh.
or whatever. So you can heat up the recovery mix chocolate,
Oh,
and it's like
okay.
hot chocolate. You can mix the chocolate with vanilla, or there's also a coffee flavor, so you can make like a
Oh, so
latte.
these are the flavors of the
Flavors,
recovery.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And there's a
okay.
salted caramel too.
I
So
can get
any of those
behind
heated
this.
up will be delicious.
My credit card's about to get some use here. I'm just excited about trying as many different kinds of things as makes sense to find what
Yeah.
works for
How it
for
works.
my
Hmm.
for my needs.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome, man. Anything else that you want to share about Tailwind that would be important for my audience to know?
Well, we're talking from Durango. We actually manufacture everything here.
Oh, you
Um,
do. Oh,
yep.
yes, I remember reading that. That's amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's something that most of the companies in this space they co-manufacture, but we actually do all of our own R&D, and we do all of our own, production. Means we have total control over the quality and the ingredients. All of our products are non-GMO and vegan and gluten
Gotcha.
free.
Cool.
So they're really tolerable by anybody. And then, kind of we make it, we use it, right? Like we're right there with you.
Well, thank you so much. I will put links and information and stuff in the video description for everybody to check out Tailwind and try it for themselves. But again, Jeff, Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your experience, some of your history and the origin of Tailwind, and just wish you the best with a nice busy summer and that people are enjoying the product while you're out on the trail.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Well,
much,
thank you so
Evan.
much.